When V stumbles upon Jungkook's hidden letter from years ago, buried in an old bag, his emotional breakdown reveals a haunting truth BTS never expected. Who the hell put this here? The sharp crack of Taehyung's voice sliced through the silence of the rehearsal room, jolting the staff and halting all movement. He stood frozen, one hand clutching a worn-out leather bag they hadn't seen in years. The room, previously filled with the soft rhythm of choreography practice, now pulsed with tension. A single crumpled piece of paper had slipped out from the bag's inner lining. It was yellowed with age, its edges curled like a secret that had waited too long to be told. Jungkook's name was scrawled on the front in unmistakably familiar handwriting. Taehyung's fingers trembled as he picked up the letter, his throat tightening. The scent of aged paper mixed with cologne still faintly lingering on it hit him like a memory wrapped in melancholy. His eyes scanned the room as if asking silently for permission to read it. None was needed. Everyone had stopped. Even the camera crew lowered their gear. Silence fell like snow. He unfolded the letter. If you're reading this, I guess I never had the courage to say any of it out loud. The words clawed at Taehyung's chest. He recognized Jungkook's handwriting, immediately rounded. Careful. Almost too thoughtful. It was dated 2018. Why had no one known about this? Why was it hidden? Why now? As he continued reading, the air shifted. Every sentence revealed a side of Jungkook none of them had seen before. Vulnerability wrapped in guilt, love twisted with fear, dreams tangled in doubt. Jungkook had written it during one of the group's darkest, unspoken moments, the era when they were silently crumbling behind flashing lights and roaring crowds, when smiles were currency and breakdowns were hidden behind backstage curtains. Sometimes I feel like a ghost in the middle of the stage, smiling because it's safer than crying. Taehyung's hand went to his chest, gripping his shirt as if to keep his heart from falling out. His lips parted, but no sound came, just a long, trembling exhale. I didn't know, he whispered. None of us knew. Behind him, one of the stylists sobbed softly. The assistant manager turned away, blinking fast. And in the corner, Namjoon slowly lowered his head into his hands, as if the weight of those words had finally cracked something inside him too. No one moved for a long time. The letter had become a ghost itself, one that now floated above them, demanding to be seen, heard, felt. Taehyung sat down on the edge of the practice stage, the letter resting on his lap. His gaze was far away, as if trying to reach into the past and pull Jungkook back from wherever he had been emotionally stranded when he wrote those words. They had all carried burdens, but this one, they'd missed it. Completely. He remembered that year. Jungkook's silences. The way he laughed louder, trained harder, stayed longer. They'd all praised his dedication, admired his discipline. None of them had seen it for what it really was. A scream muffled in routine. What else didn't we see? Taehyung asked aloud, his voice breaking. The room remained quiet, but the silence was no longer passive. It was listening, watching, holding its breath. In that moment, the staff wasn't thinking about schedules or shows or photo ops. They were thinking about a boy who had nearly drowned beneath the waves of his own success. A boy who had written his pain onto a letter and hidden it away, maybe hoping no one would ever find it. Or maybe hoping someone would. Taehyung looked up, eyes red-rimmed but burning with something else now resolve. I need to talk to him. The room exhaled collectively, but no one said what they all feared. That maybe it was too late. Not in time, but in understanding. Maybe the real Jungkook had already built walls too high to climb. Maybe this letter was the only open door they'd get. And still, somewhere in the hallway, they heard footsteps. Quiet. Approaching. Jungkook was back from his solo shoot. You read it? Jungkook's voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came not from peace but from exhaustion. Like a man who'd rehearsed 100 versions of this moment and still found himself unprepared. Taehyung stood slowly. The letter was still in his hand, slightly wrinkled from the grip he hadn't realized he kept tightening. He turned to face Jungkook, whose frame now filled the doorway. Sweat still clung to his jaw from the shoot, his black hoodie half-zipped, and his eyes, those damn eyes were unreadable. We found it, Taehyung said, his voice low but unwavering. I read it. Everyone did. Something in Jungkook's posture shifted. Barely noticeable, but enough. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes flicked past Taehyung to the crew, to Namjoon who still hadn't looked up, and to the others whose faces bore the weight of knowing something they weren't supposed to know. You weren't meant to, Jungkook said, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. It was never supposed to be read. Not now. Not by you. Then why keep it? Taehyung asked. Why not burn it like all the other things you pretend don't matter? Jungkook's jaw clenched. Because I couldn't. Exactly. Taehyung shot back, stepping forward. Because it does matter. You matter, Jungkook. And whatever that letter was, it wasn't just pain. It was a scream. I didn't ask for a rescue, Jungkook said coldly. I wrote it because I didn't trust myself enough to say it out loud. And I sure as hell didn't trust any of you to understand. The slap of his words echoed. The crew looked down, suddenly finding the floor fascinating. Taehyung flinched as if struck not physically, but where it hurt more. In his belief that they knew each other better than this. Namjoon finally stood. Jungkook, none of us are trying to corner you. Then what do you call this? Jungkook snapped. An intervention? A pity party? You all read my worst thoughts and now what? You're here to fix me? Patch up the golden matinee before the next tour? Silence. He let the venom drip. Every word chosen not just to wound, but to defend. Because behind the fury, Taehyung saw something else. Fear. Shame. The same kid who once asked him if he was enough. Even when the world screamed he was more than anyone. You think we see you as that? Taehyung whispered. Some brand image to polish? Is that really what you think of us? Jungkook looked away, his jaw working. I thought you were my family, he finally said. But I realized something. Even families leave you behind when you stop shining. There it was. The real heartbreak. Not in the words he wrote, but in the ones he never said until now. The loneliness of being adored by millions and still feeling utterly replaceable. Taehyung's voice broke. We never left you. Jungkook laughed bitterly. You didn't have to. I left myself. His hands curled into fists. You know what it's like, don't you? To feel like you're performing your existence. Every smile dissected. Every tear turned into headlines. I couldn't breathe. I wrote that letter because I was scared that one day I'd disappear right in front of everyone and no one would even notice. You're wrong, came a quiet voice. Jimin had been silent all this time, leaning against the far wall. But now he stepped forward. His expression was unreadable except for the tear that had carved a line down his cheek. You think I didn't notice when you stopped laughing with your eyes? He said, voice shaking. You think I didn't hear you vomiting between sets in 2018 because you were overtraining and starving yourself? You think we didn't care? Jungkook stared at him, stunned. We saw you, Jimin said. But you pushed us away. Every single time. We didn't leave you, Jungkook. You locked the door. The room held its breath. I didn't know how to open it again, Jungkook whispered. Taehyung moved toward him slowly, like approaching something wild and hurt. Then let's find the key together. But Jungkook didn't move. His lips parted, then closed again. His hands trembled. He looked down at the floor like it might give him answers, but none came. And then he said it. There's more. 3 words that sent a jolt through the room. What do you mean? Namjoon asked carefully. Jungkook swallowed hard. That letter, it wasn't the only one. The atmosphere thickened like a storm cloud about to burst. I wrote others. To all of you. Over the years. Every time I felt like I was fading, I hid them. All over the dorm, the studio, backstage boxes everywhere. I didn't want to be found, but part of me hoped, someday, you would. The confession dropped like a bomb. Jin leaned forward from where he sat quietly, his brows furrowed. Why now, Kook? Why say all this now? Because for the first time, Jungkook said, voice cracking. Someone actually found one. His shoulders collapsed slightly, the armor breaking. Taehyung stepped closer, his voice softer now. Let us find the rest. I don't know if I can handle you reading them. Then let us earn the right to, Jimin said, stepping beside Taehyung. Not as your bandmates, as your brothers. Jungkook looked at them, really looked, and for the first time, in what felt like years, he let the tears fall. No apology, no hiding, just truth. And with it, the promise of a reckoning still to come. Because if those letters held more than pain, if they held confessions, regrets, secrets, then the group wasn't just facing emotional healing. They were about to unearth the one thing they'd all buried for too long. The truth. Check the old studio, Jungkook said hoarsely, wiping his face with his sleeve, eyes red but finally open in a way they hadn't been in years. There's one under the floorboard behind the piano. The words rang like a code, awakening something long dormant. The old studio, the one they had used before their global breakout, before the awards, the world tours, the madness. That cramped, dim-lit room still smelled like wood polish, ramen, and sweat. A shrine to their early dreams, and now, apparently, a graveyard for hidden truths. No one said anything at first. Then Namjoon nodded. I'll go. I'm coming with you, Taehyung said immediately. But Jungkook stepped forward. No, I need to be the one who gives it to you. The silence that followed was dense with hesitation. Everyone understood what that meant. He wasn't ready to let go of control. This wasn't about trust, it was about survival. About confronting demons on his terms. 3 hours later, the group sat in the old studio. Lights dimmed. Jungkook knelt beside the dusty piano, fingers tracing the cracks in the wooden floorboard. It took him a moment to remember how he'd hidden it. A loose nail, a small panel pried open. His hands trembled as he reached in and pulled out a folded, dust-covered envelope. He held it in both hands like it might explode. I wrote this in 2019, he said, standing slowly, his back to them. Right after the Billboard performance, the one where we got the standing ovation. Taehyung's brow furrowed. That was one of the best nights of your life, wasn't it? Jungkook laughed quietly without humor. That's what everyone thought. That's what I let them think. He turned around, eyes glassy but fierce. That night, he began, I almost left. The words hit like ice water. Jin jolted upright. Jimin's lips parted in disbelief. Namjoon's hands, folded neatly on his lap, began to shake. What do you mean, left? Yoongi asked, voice carefully controlled. I mean left everything, Jungkook said, voice low. The band. The fame. Life. Jimin stood up too fast. What the hell are you saying? I was done, Jungkook said almost gently. I went back to the hotel after the show, and while you guys were celebrating on the rooftop with staff, I sat in the bathroom for 2 hours with a sleeping pill bottle in my hand. The room split apart. Emotion slammed into each of them with no warning. Taehyung looked like he'd been punched. Namjoon closed his eyes, as if to block the image out. Jimin stumbled back, clutching his chest like he couldn't breathe. I didn't take them, Jungkook added, his voice quieter now. Obviously. I don't know why. Maybe I was waiting for someone to call. Maybe I just didn't have the guts. Jin stood up abruptly and turned his back to them all, shoulders heaving. He was crying, and for once, he didn't hide it. Namjoon finally spoke, his voice a raw whisper. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to be a burden, Jungkook said. I didn't want to be the weak link. You guys, you were all moving forward so fast. I couldn't keep up. And the more I smiled, the more invisible I felt. Taehyung stood now, walking to him slowly. You could have told me. I would have carried you if I had to. Jungkook looked at him. I know, but I didn't want you to see me like that. I hated that version of myself. And I figured, if I disappeared, maybe you'd all hurt less. Jimin punched the wall. You idiot. Everyone jumped. He turned around, eyes blazing through tears. You selfish, beautiful idiot. You think we would have hurt less without you? We would have been destroyed. You're not just our little brother, Jungkook. You're our F-King heart. Jungkook's face crumpled. I didn't know that then. Well, now you do, Jimin said, grabbing him into a sudden, suffocating hug. Don't you ever think that again. Jungkook didn't resist. His body collapsed into Jimin's like he was finally letting go of a weight too heavy to carry. The sobs that followed were raw, childlike, ugly, and utterly human. Jimin held him like he was made of glass, while the others surrounded them, shoulders touching, silence forming a shield. After a long time, Namjoon broke the moment. We need to find the rest of the letters. Jungkook pulled away, wiping his face. There's one more I remember clearly. It's not about me. It's about one of you. Everyone froze. What are you talking about? Yoongi asked. Jungkook hesitated, then looked at Taehyung. I wrote something down in 2020. Something you said. Something you begged me never to repeat. Taehyung's expression shifted instantly. Jungkook, stop. But Jungkook didn't. He reached into his backpack and pulled out another folded piece of paper, this one newer, cleaner, but no less heavy with meaning. He held it out, staring at Taehyung. You asked me to carry this secret, Jungkook said. But I don't think I can anymore. Not if we're really doing this. Not if we're finally being honest. Taehyung didn't move. His eyes were locked on the letter like it was a live wire. Namjoon looked between them. What's in it? Taehyung's voice was barely a whisper. Don't open it. Why? Jin asked, tension spiking. What the hell is going on? Taehyung stepped forward now, placing his hand over the letter. Because if you read that, everything changes. Changes how? Yoongi demanded. Jungkook's voice was hoarse. Because it's about what Taehyung almost did during the pandemic hiatus. About who he was secretly in contact with. About what he almost left. Taehyung's eyes burned into him. I told you that in confidence, and I honored it, Jungkook replied, pain flashing in his eyes. Until I realized it was killing both of us. Namjoon stepped between them. Tell us, now. Taehyung backed away like a cornered animal. Don't do this. But Jungkook was already speaking. He almost left the group, not because of burnout or scandal, but because he was in love. The room erupted. Taehyung turned white. Jimin gasped. Yoongi swore under his breath. Jin looked like he'd been slapped. Namjoon just stared, thunderstruck. Who? Jin asked. Who are you? Taehyung looked at the floor. No answer. Silence stretched until it screamed. And then Jungkook whispered the name. And all hell broke loose. You said her name? Taehyung's voice wasn't loud, but it was lethal. Cold, shaking. Each syllable a blade laced with disbelief. Jungkook stood firm, though regret shimmered behind his eyes. The paper still hung limply between his fingers like a truce that had already failed. No one else moved. No one could move. The weight of the name Jungkook had whispered. Her name had detonated something unspoken in the air, and now everyone was left choking on the smoke. I had to, Jungkook said finally. You wouldn't, and it's killing you. Taehyung laughed. One bitter, short breath of a laugh. You had to? That wasn't your story to tell. No, Jungkook admitted. But it was the silence we were all living with. Yoongi stood from the couch, tension twisting through his jaw. I'm sorry. Can someone tell me who the hell we're talking about? Jimin, still visibly shaken from the last revelation, turned slowly toward him. It's her, the actress, the one from the Chanel shoot in Paris, the one who was rumored to be with V. Oh fuck, Yin muttered. Hansuri, Namjoon said flatly, like saying her name might reclaim control over it. And that's when the emotional dam finally cracked. She was never supposed to be real, Jin barked. You said it was nothing, that the tabloids were lying. They were, Taehyung snapped. At the time, but it didn't stay that way. Silence. Again. She reached out during the lockdown, Taehyung said, voice now flat with the weight of truth. We were all isolated. You were writing solo mixtapes. Yoongi was in surgery recovery. Jungkook was disappearing into himself, and He broke off, blinking rapidly. I answered a DM. That's it. Just a, hey, how are you holding up? And that turned into what, exactly? Jin demanded. Secret phone calls? Midnight rendezvous? Plans to leave BTS? Yes, Taehyung snapped. Jimin dropped back into the chair like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. You were going to throw it all away, Yoongi said, eyes narrowing. For a woman you barely knew? I knew her, Taehyung shot back. Don't reduce her to that. She listened when none of you did. When I said I was losing myself, she didn't give me another schedule. She told me to stop, to breathe. She told me I didn't have to be V every second of the damn day. And that's what we didn't do? Jimin said, his voice low, wounded. We didn't listen? Taehyung looked at him, really looked. And there it was. The guilt, the storm. The apology too big for words. You all loved me, he said. But you didn't see me. Not then. Not when it mattered. Namjoon sat down slowly, resting his elbows on his knees. You were going to walk away without telling us? Taehyung nodded. I wrote my resignation. I never sent it. But I wrote it. I rehearsed what I'd say. I even practiced how I'd smile when I told the fans goodbye. But I couldn't do it. Why not? Jin asked, more gently now. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. Because he found me, he said quietly. The night before, I was supposed to tell our manager. Jungkook showed up at my apartment without warning. He didn't say anything, just brought a bag of snacks and sat next to me while I stared at the wall. He didn't ask questions, didn't try to fix me. Jungkook looked down. Taehyung continued. I cried that night, told him everything. About Suri, about wanting to disappear, about how I didn't feel like me anymore. He stayed the whole night, Taehyung said. Fell asleep on the floor with his hoodie pulled over his head. And when I woke up, he was cooking eggs like it was any other Sunday morning. Like the world hadn't almost broken. No one spoke. The confession hung heavy, sacred. I asked him to keep it between us, Taehyung added. Because I didn't want to destroy this. Us, our bond, the trust. I thought if I pretended it didn't happen, it would go away. But it didn't, Namjoon said. It festered, and now it's bleeding out. Jungkook finally looked up, voice hoarse. That's why I kept the letter. I knew it would come back. I just didn't know when. Taehyung turned to him, pain carved deep into his face. You betrayed me. No, Jungkook said, stepping forward. I saved you, the same way you saved me. Back then, you trusted me with your darkest moment. I'm just asking you to trust that I'm doing the right thing now. Taehyung clenched his fists, breathing hard, rage and hurt battling in his chest. But before he could respond, a sound interrupted them. A knock. Everyone froze. The door to the studio creaked open. A staff member peeked in, wide-eyed. I'm sorry, she stammered. But someone's here. She says she needs to speak to Taehyung. It's Hansuri. Taehyung's heart stopped. Chaos erupted. What? Jin exploded. You told her where we were, Yoongi yelled. I didn't, Taehyung snapped. I haven't spoken to her in 2 years. Jungkook turned to the staffer. How the hell did she even find this location? She said someone texted her the address, the staff member said shakily. She's in the parking lot. Everyone turned to Taehyung. I didn't send her anything, he insisted. I swear to God, Namjoon grabbed his phone. We need to know who did, right now. But Jungkook was already checking his messages. A text from an unknown number glared back at him. Truth heals. Secrets rot. Doors open. And beneath it, a photo of Suri, standing outside the studio. Jungkook's blood went cold. She didn't find us, he said slowly. She was sent. Jimin narrowed his eyes. By who? Jungkook looked up, fear flashing across his face. I think someone's trying to expose us. Taehyung's voice was hollow. Why? Namjoon stood, jaw locked. Because someone wants to end BTS. From the inside. The door to the studio had never felt so thin. Beyond it, footsteps paced across the gravel of the parking lot. They echoed like a countdown, each step louder in the silence of the room. Inside, tension rippled through every inch of space. Taehyung stood paralyzed, his fists clenched by his sides, while the others turned to Jungkook, waiting for him to say it was a joke, a misunderstanding, anything. But his face said otherwise. She was sent, Jungkook repeated, his voice low, uneven. Someone gave her our exact location. Today, right after the letter. Jimin moved closer, jaw tight. You think someone's watching us? Inside the company? No. Jungkook shook his head, eyes scanning the group. Not inside the company. Inside this room. The words landed like a bomb. Jin stepped forward immediately, face flushed with disbelief. No, absolutely not. Are you saying one of us did this? I don't want to believe it, Jungkook said. But this place isn't public. It hasn't been used in years. Only we knew we'd be here. Namjoon's voice was ice. Then someone's playing a game. A dangerous one. Outside, the gravel crunched again. The knock came louder this time. A soft, rhythmic bang, bang, bang. Like she knew they were all inside, holding their breath. Taehyung turned to the staffer still frozen in the doorway. Let her in. Are you sure? I said let her in. Jungkook grabbed his arm. Hyung, don't. She's already here, Taehyung snapped. Whatever storm she brought, it's too late to run. The door opened, and there she was. Hansuri stepped inside like a ghost walking through her own funeral. The air shifted instantly, some intangible weight entering the room. She wasn't in disguise. No sunglasses, no hoodie. Her long black coat fluttered slightly as she walked, eyes locked on Taehyung. She was heartbreakingly beautiful, and heartbreakingly real. No one spoke, not even her, until she turned to Jungkook. You kept it. The entire room stiffened. Jungkook blinked. What? The letter, she said softly. The one I gave you. 2 years ago. Before I left, Namjoon's head snapped toward Jungkook. You never said she gave you anything. Jungkook faltered, genuinely stunned. I forgot. It was one of the nights Taehyung was spiraling. She showed up outside the dorm. I didn't let her in. She just gave me the envelope and said, "You'll know when to read it." I shoved it in a drawer. I never opened it. Suri nodded. You might want to read it now. Why? Jin asked, stepping forward, anger still dancing behind his eyes. Why are you even here? Because you deserve to know the truth, she said. And because someone is trying to use my past with Taehyung to destroy your future. Taehyung swallowed hard. What does that mean? I was blackmailed 2 weeks ago, she said calmly, like it was an ordinary thing. Anonymous number. They wanted dirt. On BTS. On you, Taehyung. They wanted proof that you planned to leave the group for me. And when I refused to give them anything, they said they'd find another way. Why didn't you tell me? Taehyung asked, voice shaking. Because I didn't want to drag you back into this, she whispered. You made your choice. You stayed. You walked away from me. I respected that. Jimin folded his arms. So why show up now? Suri looked at each of them, pausing on Namjoon last. Because the person behind this isn't just trying to expose the past. They're trying to dismantle the group piece by piece. And the only way to stop them is to admit everything. Namjoon frowned. What do you mean everything? I mean the secrets you all think are buried. They're not, she said. Whoever this is, they're already 10 steps ahead. If you don't speak first, they will. And they won't be kind. Yoongi narrowed his eyes. You're saying someone's collecting ammo? From all of us? She nodded. Jungkook looked toward Taehyung. Hyung, who did you ever talk to about her other than me? No one, Taehyung said firmly. Not even staff. Not even my family. Well, someone talked, Suri said. A sharp buzz interrupted her. Namjoon's phone lit up. One new message. Unknown number. Who's next? Should we talk about the time Yoongi disappeared for 36 hours in Tokyo? Or maybe Jimin's panic attack in Berlin? Decisions. Decisions! Namjoon's blood ran cold. He passed the phone silently to Yoongi, whose face hardened as he read it. This is what we're dealing with, Namjoon said darkly. Not just scandal. Someone's hacking our lives, our privacy, our traumas. We need to go to Hybe, Jin said quickly. We need lawyers. Security. They can't protect us from what we've already written. Jungkook muttered. What? Jimin asked. Jungkook turned to the shelf by the piano. His movements were strange, deliberate, and then he pulled out a thick manila folder. The letter Suri gave me. I didn't open it, but I put it in here, with the others. Taehyung's eyes widened. The other letters? Jungkook nodded. All of them. Everything I wrote. Everything you told me. It's all here. Namjoon stepped forward slowly. That folder, if it gets out? It won't, Jungkook said. But Suri's eyes told a different story. I saw a photo of that folder, she said. In one of the messages they sent me. They've seen it, Jungkook. Maybe even read it. Panic exploded like shrapnel. How? Jin asked. Who would even know where it was? Everyone turned, and then Yoongi said it. Quiet, Icy. Who's been in this studio recently? Anyone? Staff? Crew? No, Namjoon said. No one but us. And maybe? He stopped. Jungkook blinked. Maybe who? Namjoon's jaw tightened. A week ago, our old manager asked to borrow the key. Said he needed to grab some archived footage from the camera locker. Taehyung looked like he'd been struck. Manager Lee? Yoongi's mouth dropped open. He was fired last year. Jin stepped forward. For leaking financial documents. Namjoon stared at the door like he was seeing through it. Guys, he said slowly, dread creeping into his voice. What if we've been feeding the enemy this entire time? The silence that followed was darker than any before, because for the first time, BTS wasn't fighting the press, or the pressure. They were fighting someone who knew everything, someone they once trusted. and he was already one step ahead. A heavy thud echoed as Jungkook dropped the manila folder on the studio table. Dust rose in thin clouds, dancing under the overhead light like ghosts coming to life. Every pair of eyes followed it. Every heartbeat thumped in the silence. Taehyung stepped back as if the folder burned. Jin looked like he was trying to calculate the fallout. Namjoon hadn't moved at all. Yoongi broke the silence first. "We need to find Manager Lee." "He's not with Hybe anymore," Jimin said, shaking his head. "No forwarding contact, no registered new address. He vanished." "Exactly," Namjoon said. "He vanished right after we confronted him about the leaked budgets. HR swept it under the rug." "You think he's been planning this since then?" Jin asked. "I think," Namjoon said, eyes dark. "He's been watching us long before we even noticed." Taehyung finally spoke, his voice low, guttural. "He knew about Suri. I saw him one night at the hotel in Tokyo. He saw her leaving my room. He didn't say anything, just smiled." Jungkook's breath caught. "That was the night you told me you were done." Taehyung nodded slowly. "And he offered me a drink. Said if I ever wanted to get out, he'd help." Jimin stepped forward, disbelief tightening his expression. "Why didn't you tell us that?" "Because I didn't think I needed to," Taehyung said. "I thought he was just being kind." "He was collecting insurance," Yoongi muttered. "Setting traps." Suri cleared her throat. "If he's the one sending messages, it means he's already backed up everything. You're not just fighting him. You're fighting the versions of yourselves you've tried to bury." Jin walked over to the manila folder, his hand hovering just inches above it. "So let's see what we're up against." "No!" Jungkook said sharply. Everyone turned to him. "Reading them now doesn't help us," he said. "We know what's in there. What we need to know is what he has. If he copied this folder, if he accessed our backups, if he hacked into staff devices, we need to know the scope." "And how the hell do you suggest we find that out?" Yoongi asked, crossing his arms. "He's off the grid." Namjoon's phone buzzed again. Another message. "You're running out of time. You want the truth? Check the drive under the control panel. Don't forget to smile for the camera." Attached. A photo of the studio control panel. The exact spot where Namjoon was sitting. The room went still. Namjoon turned around slowly. Beneath the main console, tucked between wires and dust, a USB drive gleamed faintly under the table's edge. He reached out, hand shaking slightly, and pulled it free. Black casing. No label. "This wasn't here when we came in," he said. "He planted it," Suri whispered. "Like a breadcrumb." Jimin grabbed the laptop from the couch and flipped it open, fingers trembling as he inserted the drive. Everyone crowded behind him as the contents appeared on screen. 2 files, one labeled for V, the other Play Me First Move. Jungkook stepped forward. "Play it." Jimin hesitated only for a second. Then double-clicked. The screen went black for a moment, and then the video flickered to life. The image was grainy. Surveillance camera footage, a timestamp from 2020. It was the BTS Tokyo hotel suite. The angle looked down at a hallway. Silent. Dim. A door opened. Taehyung stepped out. Hair tousled. Barefoot. Wearing a plain white shirt. Behind him, Han Suri. Not a rumor. Not fanfiction. Actual, undeniable footage. Jimin cursed under his breath. Taehyung's hands clenched. His entire body went still. The video continued. They didn't do anything inappropriate. They didn't kiss. But the way she touched his arm, the way he hesitated before pulling away, it was intimate, real, quietly heartbreaking. The screen cut to black again. Then a voice. "Not from the footage from Lee. Secrets are currency," his voice echoed, smooth, measured, venomous. "You built an empire on loyalty. Brotherhood. But what happens when the foundation cracks? More static." Then a new clip began. Jungkook, 2018, alone, in a dance studio, crying. They recognized the room. The footage was taken without his knowledge. From a corner camera, he was talking to himself, muttering, "Why can't I just say it? Why can't I tell them I don't want this today?" Yoongi reached out and slammed the laptop shut. "No," he said, voice stone cold. "This ends now." Namjoon turned to him. "You think breaking the laptop fixes this? That was a copy, Hyung. He has everything." Yoongi looked around. "Then we beat him at his own game." "How?" Jungkook asked. "He has leverage. He's waiting for us to panic. Then we don't panic, Yoongi snapped. We leak it ourselves. Everyone froze. Are you insane? Jin shouted. You want us to expose Jungkook's breakdowns and Taehyung's forbidden love story to the public? Yes, Yoongi said, not backing down. Because if we do it, he loses the power. We take back the narrative. That could destroy the band, Jimin said quietly. Yoongi turned to him. It might save us. Namjoon looked at the others, one by one. Jungkook, Taehyung, Jin, Jimin, Yoongi. Wounded, cornered, but still standing. We need a plan, he said finally. Fast, strategic. One that lets us control the story and find Lee before he leaks something we can't recover from. Jungkook nodded slowly. Then we start tonight. How? Jin asked. Jungkook's eyes turned cold, focused. We tell the truth, he said. Namjoon raised an eyebrow. To who? To the only people who matter, Jungkook said. He turned and picked up his phone, opened the camera app, and hit record. Hi, he said, staring directly into the lens. This is Jungkook, and I have something to say. Not as an idol, not as BTS, as me. Everyone stared, but no one stopped him, because in that moment, they understood. This wasn't just about saving a legacy. This was about reclaiming their lives, and there was no turning back. The red REC icon blinked silently on Jungkook's phone screen. For a split second, the room held its breath. Then he spoke. I don't know what you expect to hear from me, he said, voice even, eyes steady. Maybe you're hoping for a scandal. Maybe you want tears. Maybe you're waiting for someone to fall. He paused. Swallowed. I guess I did fall. A long time ago, and no one really saw it. Or maybe they did and just didn't know what to say. Behind him, the room had frozen. No one dared move or breathe too loudly. Not even Taehyung. I wrote letters, Jungkook continued, because I didn't trust anyone enough to say things out loud. Not even my brothers. I was afraid they'd think less of me. Afraid of disappointing the fans. Afraid of losing the only life I knew. Jin's eyes glistened. Jimin wiped his cheek silently. But the truth is, Jungkook's voice cracked slightly. Pretending to be okay was worse. So here it is. I almost quit. I almost ended it all, and the only reason I didn't was because of them. He looked over his shoulder, making eye contact with each member before turning back to the lens. They held me together when I was falling apart, even when they didn't know it. He ended the recording and looked at Namjoon. Post it. Namjoon hesitated. Cook. You sure? Completely. Namjoon exhaled, reached for the phone, and uploaded the video without another word. Within 3 minutes, it was trending worldwide. Jungkook Truth. BTS Unfiltered. Protect BTS. Notifications exploded. Comments poured in by the hundreds of thousands. The fanbase didn't react with outrage. It reacted with heartbreak, with solidarity, with love. And just as the room started to breathe again, Jimin's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered before thinking. Hello? A deep voice on the other end. Smooth as venom. Cute move, the voice said. But are you ready for your turn? Jimin froze. Who is this? You know who I am, the voice replied. You're the one with the secret that could burn this all to ash. Aren't you, Park Jimin? The line went dead. Jimin stared at the phone in his hand like it had just turned into a live grenade. What happened? Taehyung asked, standing quickly. Jimin didn't answer right away. He just turned and walked out of the room. Jimin! Jungkook called after him, but Jimin didn't stop. Yoongi grabbed his jacket and followed. Jin, too. They found Jimin outside the studio, hands on his knees, breathing hard like he'd just been punched. What did he say? Yoongi asked quietly. Jimin looked up, eyes wide and terrified. He knows. Knows what? Jin demanded. Jimin hesitated. Then, as if the weight of it finally became unbearable, he collapsed onto the bench outside and whispered the words that would change everything. I slept with someone, he said, barely audible. During our European tour, someone from staff, and he wasn't single. Jin's mouth dropped open. Yoongi's expression didn't move. Jimin stared at the ground. It was one night. I was drunk, lonely. I didn't even know he was married until after, and when I found out, I wanted to disappear. I thought if I told any of you, it would ruin everything. Does Namjoon know? Yoongi asked. Jimin shook his head. No one does. Except him. You're sure it was Lee? Jin asked. It has to be, Jimin said. He sent a photo. Yoongi sat down beside him. We can get ahead of this. Jimin let out a bitter laugh. How? The internet's gonna crucify me. I'm not the golden youngest like Jungkook. I don't get second chances. You're Jimin, Jin said, his voice stern now. And we're not letting you face this alone. Back inside, Namjoon was already coordinating with Hybe's crisis PR team, who were losing their minds over Jungkook's video. You broke every protocol! One of them shouted over the phone. You can't just confess like that on a live stream! He didn't confess to a crime, Namjoon said. He confessed to being human. Get behind it. Or get out of the way. The manager on the other line stammered. We have investors. Sponsors. We have... Namjoon cut him off. We have souls. Do you remember what that is? He hung up. The door burst open. Yoongi and Jin led Jimin back in. Namjoon saw Jimin's face and immediately knew. What happened? I have to make a statement, Jimin said quietly. But not like Jungkook's. This is different. No, Jungkook said, walking over. It's not. Jimin shook his head. This wasn't trauma. It was a mistake. One that could hurt other people. I have to own it. Taehyung came forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Then own it, he said. But we'll stand beside you when you do. Jimin looked around. Even if the fans turn. They won't, Jungkook said. And even if some do, we won't. Jimin sat down and began writing his statement. Meanwhile, Namjoon's phone buzzed again. Another message. Cute show. Too bad it's incomplete. You've got 48 hours before I drop the footage from Berlin. Oh, and tell Yoongi I still have his original lyrics. You know the ones that never made it past the censors. Yoongi's eyes darkened as Namjoon handed him the phone. What lyrics? Jungkook asked. Watching Yoongi's face change, Yoongi didn't answer immediately. Then he said, Back in 2016, I wrote a song. A real one. Raw. About death. Self. Hate. Suicide. The label said if I released it, I'd be suspended. So, I buried it. And Lee has it, Namjoon said. Yoongi nodded. If he releases that now, it'll be worse than a scandal. It'll spark copycats. We can't let that happen, Taehyung said. I don't care if it gets me in trouble, Yoongi growled. But if it hurts someone else, I'll find him myself. Namjoon looked around the room. We've tried playing nice, he said. Now it's war. Jin clenched his jaw. Where do we start? Namjoon turned back to the laptop, opened a new file, and began typing. We gather every secret, every threat, every piece of blackmail, and we burn it under our spotlight. Jungkook leaned over. You're saying we leak everything ourselves? Yes, Namjoon said. But we do it together. Jimin walked over and handed Namjoon his typed statement. Then start with mine. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Yoongi said, I'll record the Berlin demo. Let the fans hear it straight from me. Jin nodded. I'll admit the 2021 contract standoff, the one we all denied. Taehyung added, and I'll tell them about Suri, the real story, not the headlines. Jungkook looked around at the people he once feared he'd lose, and smiled. Let's do it. The war had begun, but they would fight it with truth, and nothing was more dangerous than idols, with nothing left to hide. The room was dim, except for the sharp, sterile glow of studio lights. All 7 of them were seated in a row, no stylists, no makeup, no choreography, no script, just the 7 of them. A single 4K camera, and a ticking clock. The live broadcast countdown blinked red on the monitor in front of them. 0.8秒, 0.7秒, 0.6秒. No turning back now. Taehyung leaned in. We do this. We don't flinch. Jimin exhaled slowly. Even if it breaks us? Especially then, said Jungkook. Namjoon glanced down at the index cards in his lap, each one scrawled with confessions, timelines, facts, and phrases he'd written over a sleepless night. Then he set them aside. They didn't need cards. They needed truth. 0.3秒, 0.2秒, 0.1秒. The light turned green. Live. Namjoon spoke first, his voice clear, solemn, and almost too calm. Hello, he said. This is BTS. And tonight, we want to speak not as idols, but as people. Jin's voice followed, his tone lower, thicker. For years, we've given you our music, our performances, our smiles. But we've also hidden pain, mistakes, and silence behind that spotlight. Yoongi leaned in, eyes cold and raw. We're no longer going to let someone else control our story. Someone is trying to blackmail us. So instead of letting them reveal things out of context, we're going to tell you everything. And they did, piece by piece. Jungkook went first. He spoke of his 2018 breakdown, the nights he disappeared, the letters he wrote, the pills he held in his hand. His voice didn't shake, but the hands in his lap did. "I'm not ashamed," he said. "I'm alive, and I'm healing. That's what matters." The fan comments poured in like a flood. Thousands, then hundreds of thousands. "We love you. Thank you. Please stay. You matter. We're with you." Jimin followed. He didn't sugarcoat it. "I made a mistake," he said. "I was in a place of confusion, loneliness, and selfishness. I slept with someone I shouldn't have. I hurt people in the process, even unknowingly. I own that. I'm sorry." Taehyung looked at him as he finished, and without hesitation, reached for his hand and squeezed it. Then Taehyung turned to the camera. He didn't blink once. "I almost left BTS in 2020, he said. "Because I thought love and this life couldn't coexist. I was wrong. Not because love is impossible, but because I thought I had to suffer alone." He paused. "Hansuri was a part of my life. Briefly. Honestly. But I stayed with BTS because I realized I wasn't trying to escape the group, I was trying to escape myself. And I'm still working through that." He glanced toward the others, and then at the camera again. "I'm not apologizing for loving someone. I'm apologizing for lying about it. To you, to them, to myself." Then came Jin. "The contract renegotiations in 2021, he said, voice taut. "We denied there was ever conflict. There was. I considered leaving. I thought I was the only one who wanted something different. Turns out, we all did. But we were too scared to admit it to each other." He sighed and looked down. "So yeah, I threatened to walk away. We fought, shouted, cried, but we didn't break." Yoongi's turn. "I wrote a song in 2016 that Hybe buried," he said, "because it talked about things they didn't want associated with BTS: depression, suicide, rage." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and held it up. "This is the original demo. I'm uploading it tonight. Because if we're going to help people, we can't keep hiding behind sanitized lyrics. Music saved my life. Maybe this song can save someone else's." He set the drive on the table like a declaration of war. Then Jungkook took over the screen again. "Someone tried to use these secrets to break us," he said. "They had footage, letters, recordings. They thought we would stay silent out of fear." Namjoon leaned forward now. "But we've decided something," he said. "They don't get to win." The screen faded briefly to black. Then a new scene. Security footage grainy, black and white. It showed a man entering the old studio 3 nights ago. Manager Lee. His face clearly visible as he pried open drawers, scanned folders, and installed a hidden camera under the mixing board. They had gotten it, thanks to a security backup from the building's maintenance department that Lee hadn't known about. Yoongi spoke again, colder now. "If you're watching, Manager Lee, and we know you are, this is your warning," Namjoon followed. "We've given the footage to legal authorities. Hybe's internal security team is launching a full investigation. You messed with the wrong people." The comments exploded again. Then the camera panned across the members, each one looking directly into the lens. No makeup. No edits. No masks. Jin. "We're not idols tonight. We're survivors." Yoongi. "We're not perfect, but we're real." Jimin. "We're not hiding anymore." Taehyung. "We're not scared of you." Jungkook. "We're not backing down." Namjoon. "We are BTS, and this is our story now." The live stream ended. In the next 6 hours, the internet melted. Hashtags filled the top 10 trends worldwide. Fans created a global campaign of support, with messages pouring in from over 180 countries. Mental health organizations reposted Jungkook and Yoongi's messages. Even critics, those who once sought to dig dirt, were stunned into silence. But not everyone was cheering. High board members called an emergency meeting. Sponsors demanded briefings. Lawyers descended. Whispers of lawsuits against Manager Lee began. Anonymous insiders leaked that this was only the beginning. Inside the studio, after the live ended, no one spoke for a while. Then Jimin broke the silence. "I thought this would feel like the end," he said. "But it doesn't." Taehyung nodded. It feels like the start of something honest. Namjoon was already opening his laptop. We need to prepare for the fallout. News anchors are going to call this a meltdown. Yoongi leaned back, arms crossed. Let them. Jin chuckled. At least we don't have to lie anymore. Jungkook stood near the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars. We just changed everything, he said, and no one disagreed. Because that night, BTS didn't just break the silence. They shattered the illusion. And in the wreckage, something stronger began to rise. The morning after the broadcast didn't come quietly. Sunlight filtered in through the blackout curtains of the studio, but it brought no peace. Their phones had been buzzing non-stop since dawn calls from Hybe execs, agency lawyers, news outlets from Korea, Japan, the US, and Europe. Emails flooded in, some demanding statements, others praising their bravery, and some threatening legal action if names continued to surface. The members were gathered in the green room, slouched in silence. Coffee cups sat half drunk. Their eyes were red, not from sleep, but from too much of everything else. Namjoon had already taken 6 calls from Hybe's legal team, and his patience was fraying. He set his phone down, rubbing his temples. No one spoke for a long while, until Jin finally did his voice dry, sarcastic. So what's the headline today? BTS burns down its own house, smiles through the ashes? Yoongi didn't laugh. No one did. Jungkook sat curled in the corner of the couch, hoodie up, eyes scanning a Twitter feed that seemed infinite. He read out loud, barely above a whisper. They're not idols anymore. They're men. And I've never loved them more. Taehyung looked up slowly from his seat on the floor. Who said that? Some army in Chile, Jungkook said. It's been shared 70,000 times. Mine just says I need Jesus, Jimin muttered from behind his laptop. Also that I ruined a generation. You didn't ruin anything, Taehyung said. Jimin raised an eyebrow. Says the man whose scandal almost dethroned BTS. Taehyung cracked a dry smirk. Only almost. Yoongi stood up, pacing. We still have one problem. Namjoon looked at him. Lee. Yoongi nodded. He hasn't responded to the legal warning. He hasn't posted anything. He's quiet. Too quiet. Jin straightened. He's waiting. Watching the dust settle before dropping something bigger. Namjoon opened his laptop again. He still has the unreleased song. The raw one. The version with the audio we cut from the final. Yoongi stopped pacing. I want him to drop it. Everyone turned. What? Jungkook asked. Yoongi's jaw was tight, but his eyes were steady. If he leaks it, and it causes real damage, maybe it'll finally expose the people protecting him. There's no way he's working alone. Namjoon closed the laptop slowly. You think someone inside is still feeding him? Yoongi nodded. Why else would he have access to my demos even after being fired? That's not leftover hacking. That's fresh supply. Taehyung stood now, face shadowed with realization. Then we need bait. Don't you dare say what I think you're about to, Jin began, but Namjoon held up a hand. No, he said. He's right. We drop something controlled, something true but small, enough to tempt him. Track the leak, then catch whoever's helping him. Jimin swallowed. And what are we dropping? A long silence. Then Jungkook said, I have something. Everyone turned. He hesitated, then spoke more quietly than usual. There's a letter I never included in the folder. One I wrote the night Taehyung and I had our worst fight. Taehyung blinked. Which one? The one after Osaka, Jungkook said. Taehyung's expression darkened. That was personal, Jungkook. We almost... I know, Jungkook said, standing. But it was also real. And if we show it now, people will see the truth about our relationship. The fights. The loyalty. The mess of it all. Jin was already shaking his head. That letter was brutal. You called each other names that could ruin fan perception forever. They already know we're not perfect, Jungkook replied. Let them see why we survived anyway. Namjoon looked at him. You'd really make that public? Even after everything? Jungkook nodded once. If it means stopping Lee, yes. Yoongi grabbed his phone. We'll upload it to Weverse, but only after I plan a fake version with metadata that points to an internal source. If Lee leaks that version instead of ours, we'll know exactly where the breach is. Taehyung stepped toward Jungkook. Are you sure about this? Jungkook smiled faintly. I've never been more sure about anything. They moved quickly. Yoongi scrubbed the metadata. Jimin rewrote the caption. Namjoon coordinated with Hybe's minimal PR team still willing to cooperate. And then the plan was set. That night, the letter went live. It was raw, ugly, powerful. A storm of guilt, betrayal, apologies, and brotherhood. The public read it like scripture. Tens of thousands of comments poured in. Some were shocked. Some were angry. But most were moved. 2 hours later, the fake version was leaked anonymously on a gossip site, complete with edited phrases that didn't match the original. Yoongi grinned. Gotcha. Namjoon pulled up the tracker. The IP address matched a specific Hybe employee's terminal, a senior content manager. A name Namjoon hadn't heard in a while. Min Hyerin, he whispered. Jin's head snapped up. She worked closely with Lee before he got fired. Jimin's face paled. She was the one who handled our early music video logs. She had access to everything. Yoongi was already dialing the internal line. We have a mole. But before anyone could move, Taehyung's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered on instinct, and her voice nearly made him drop the phone. Suri? He breathed. Don't speak, she said urgently. Listen, I was approached again. They want me to release audio. What audio? You, me, hotel balcony, 2020. They have a mic feed. Taehyung closed his eyes. That's not possible. They said if I don't send it to the press, they'll leak a doctored version instead. Jungkook was by his side in an instant. What is it? Taehyung didn't answer. Suri continued, voice trembling now. I think they recorded us during our fight. The one where you said you wished you were never in BTS. The room went dead silent. Jimin froze. Namjoon's face drained of color. Jungkook's hand dropped from Taehyung's shoulder. You said that, Jin asked quietly. I didn't mean it, Taehyung whispered. It was in the middle of a breakdown. I didn't know I was being recorded. But the world won't care about context, Namjoon said grimly. Suri's voice was barely a breath now. I'll take the hit if I have to. I'll say it was faked. No, Taehyung said. You've protected me enough. He hung up, then turned to the others. If that audio drops, it could destroy everything. Jungkook stared at him. Then we get to it first. Namjoon's voice was steel. It's time to go nuclear. No more fear, no more half-truths. In 48 hours, BTS would hold a global press conference. Not as idols, but as 7 men who refused to be broken, and the world would never be the same again. The world didn't breathe for 48 hours. Social media had gone from chaos to something more like a battlefield, fans argued. Analysts speculated. News outlets dissected every clip, every caption, every syllable of BTS's live confessions. But the rumors never stopped. And now, they were multiplying. Leaked audio was circulating snippets, out-of-context phrases, broken sentences whispered in private moments. The worst one had already started trending. Sometimes I wish I was never part of BTS. Taehyung's voice, guttural, angry, tired. No context, no frame, just the sentence. They were being crucified in real time. The headlines were merciless. BTS implodes, internal betrayal, secret affairs, and hidden meltdowns revealed. Was it all a lie? Fans demand clarity. I wish I wasn't in BTS's. Taehyung's leaked audio sparks global outrage. Hybe's official statement had been brief and toothless. We are investigating ongoing privacy breaches and working with authorities. It wasn't enough. Now, the 7 of them were seated behind a long black table in the main Hybe conference room, facing over 100 members of the press and a live stream audience in the tens of millions. They wore all black. Not coordinated, not styled, not strategic, just black, like mourning. Namjoon sat in the middle, flanked by Jin and Jungkook on one side, Jimin and Taehyung on the other. Yoongi and Hoseok were at the ends. Every face was serious, every breath controlled. Namjoon leaned forward into the mic. We appreciate your time today, and we won't waste it. Flashbulbs exploded like lightning. Reporters leaned forward, pens scribbling, fingers racing across keyboards. Namjoon continued. You've seen videos, read letters, heard recordings, but you haven't heard us. Not like this. He turned slightly to Yoongi. Yoongi didn't flinch. He looked directly into the camera and said, I wrote a song about suicide in 2016. Hybe buried it. Said it was too dark, too real. I listened. I censored myself. Now that song has been leaked without context. People are calling it dangerous, but what's dangerous is silence. A murmur rippled through the room. Yoongi didn't blink. If that song reached someone who felt the same darkness I did, and helped them stay alive, then I don't regret a single lyric. Next to him, Jungkook adjusted his mic. The letters were real, he said. I wrote them. Everyone. I thought if I wrote them down, the pain would stay there, but it didn't. It followed me. Into rehearsals, into shows, into my dreams. His voice cracked. I was the youngest. Everyone said I was the strongest, but I wasn't. I nearly took my life in 2018, and no one knew. I didn't let them know. That was my choice, but the lie was heavy. He looked straight into the cameras now. I don't want to be your perfect idol. I want to be a human being you can still love when I'm broken. Next was Jimin. He hesitated, then breathed out through his nose and said, Yes, I was involved with someone I shouldn't have been. It hurt people, and I've apologized privately. Now I'm apologizing publicly, not because I was caught, but because I don't want to hide anymore. The room remained painfully quiet. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm proud that I had the courage to admit it. I hope that counts for something. Then came Taehyung. He looked like a man holding a live wire in his chest. The audio you heard, he said softly, was real, but it wasn't what you think it is. He sat forward. I said those words to someone I trusted during a breakdown. We were isolated, overwhelmed, and I was on the edge of something I didn't even recognize. I said I wished I wasn't in BTS, not because I hate this group, but because I hated myself. I didn't feel worthy. He looked around at his bandmates. I stayed, because they reminded me who I was. Flashbulbs continued to explode, but no one interrupted. Not yet. Jin leaned into the mic next. People have asked why we didn't say anything earlier. Why we let things reach this point. The truth is, we've been silenced for years. Contracts, PR managers, fear of letting you down, of letting each other down. He held up a sheet of paper. This is the resignation I wrote in 2021. I never submitted it, because Jungkook found it in my bag and burned it before I could. Jungkook blinked in surprise. Jin gave him a soft smile. You didn't know I saw you do it, did you? Jungkook looked away, a little stunned. We were never going to make it as a group of perfect idols, Jin continued. We only survived by being imperfect brothers. Finally, Namjoon spoke again. We're here today not just to respond, but to reclaim. He gestured behind him. A screen lit up. Security footage played. Manager Lee, entering the studio, planting cameras, stealing files, whispering on phone calls. Screenshots followed his messages to Suri, to Jimin's partner, even to a fan account he used to spread fake rumors under a pseudonym. Gasps echoed through the room. Namjoon's voice didn't waver. This man weaponized our traumas, our mistakes, our humanity. We're pursuing criminal charges, and we've requested the full support of law enforcement and media platforms in removing the stolen content. He let that hang. Then he stood. But more importantly, we're telling you, everything we've done out of love. Love for our fans, love for each other, love for music. He paused. Even when it hurt, the room was utterly still. No more typing, no more whispering. Even the camera operators had lowered their hands slightly. Namjoon looked at the others. They all stood with him. Jungkook, Taehyung, Jimin, Yoongi, Jin, Hoseok, and Namjoon. He finished. We're not broken. We're reborn. The stream ended, and the internet shattered. Hashtags trended within seconds. Global celebrities spoke out. Therapists praised the group's openness. Legal experts dissected Lee's crimes. Army millions of them flooded the timeline with hearts, stories, forgiveness, and grief. But more than anything, there was a new tone. Not idol worship. Not scandal obsession. Respect. For 7 men who stood in front of the world and refused to lie one more time. In the days that followed, manager Lee was arrested. Min Hyeon's HYBE contract was terminated, and she was under investigation for conspiracy. And BTS? BTS disappeared. No schedules, no posts, no music, just silence. Until 1 week later, a single post appeared on Weverse. A black image. White text. We're not going anywhere, we're just getting started. BTS. And for the first time in months, the world exhaled. The silence following their explosive press conference wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. Inside the reinforced privacy of Hybe's private retreat in Jeju Island, BTS had taken shelter not from the media, not from the fans, but from each other. The truth had been spoken. But truth doesn't heal instantly. It lingers, bleeds, demands reckoning. Inside the wooden villa, the seven of them moved like shadows intertwined by history, but frayed at the edges. No rehearsals, no cameras, no staff. Just days and nights of deafening quiet and conversations that hovered just out of reach. On the third night, Taehyung stood alone on the porch, watching the ocean dissolve into the horizon. The waves rolled like breath, steady, loud, infinite. Jungkook appeared beside him, silent. "I thought it would feel better," Taehyung murmured, letting it all out. "It does," Jungkook said, "until the adrenaline wears off." Taehyung glanced sideways. "Do you hate me for what I said? That I wished I wasn't in BTS?" "No," Jungkook said. "But it hurt. Not because you felt it, but because I never knew." Taehyung looked back toward the sea. "I didn't want anyone to know." Jungkook's voice was barely audible. "I did." A pause. Then Jungkook turned to him. "I needed to know. Because if I had known, I could have done more. Been there sooner. Said something. Held you up when you were slipping." Taehyung closed his eyes. "You did," he whispered. "You always did." Inside, Yoongi sat at the dining table with Namjoon and Jin. A half-finished bottle of soju stood between them, untouched. "We can't pretend this goes away," Yoongi said. "The press has shifted. They're no longer chasing us, but they're watching. Every move." Namjoon nodded. "Hybe wants us to lay low for a few months. Maybe do a small comeback, test the waters." "I'm not ready for a comeback," Jin said flatly. "Not after this. Not with him still in the group." Namjoon's brow furrowed. "Who?" Jin didn't answer. "Jin," Yoongi said, "if you've got something to say, say it." Jin stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "I know one of you is still hiding something," he snapped. "And I'm not talking about Lee. I'm talking about us." Yoongi exchanged a glance with Namjoon. "What are you talking about?" Namjoon asked. "There was a second leak," Jin said. "A document. About our old Japan contracts. Someone sent it to a journalist the night before the press conference. But it was intercepted." Namjoon stiffened. "I didn't know that." "Exactly," Jin snapped. "Only 4 people had access to that contract file. You, me, the lawyer, and Hoseok." Yoongi's head turned sharply. "You think Hobie?" "I don't want to," Jin said, jaw tight. "But someone did. And if it wasn't you, and it wasn't me," Namjoon stood now, voice low. "Then we ask him. We don't accuse. We ask." At that moment, Hoseok stepped in from the hallway. He had clearly heard everything. His face was calm, but his eyes, those usually soft, sunlit eyes, were dark. "I didn't leak it," he said. Jin stared at him. "You were the last one who opened that file. 2 weeks ago. I checked the server log." "I opened it," Hoseok said. "To make sure what was in it was protected." "Protected?" Jin scoffed. "Or copied?" Hoseok stepped forward, eyes locked on Jin's. "I've stood by this group through everything. When the rest of you were breaking down, I kept dancing, kept performing, kept the brand intact. So don't you dare question my loyalty." "Then explain the timestamp," Jin said, voice rising. "I opened it," Hoseok repeated. "But I also encrypted it, added a second layer of security. I've been talking to an outside cybersecurity firm since the first leak, because I didn't trust Hybe to protect us." Namjoon's eyes widened. "You went outside the company?" Hoseok nodded. "I had to. We're not safe within these walls anymore. You think Lee was working alone? Hybe's been letting things slip through the cracks for years. We only noticed when it hit us." Yoongi leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I didn't want to blow this group up more than it already was," Hoseok said. "And because I didn't know who I could trust." Jin's voice softened. "You could have trusted me." Hoseok's jaw clenched. "You left a resignation letter in your backpack, Young. What was I supposed to think?" Silence cracked the room in half. Then Namjoon sat down slowly, his voice brittle. "So what now? We can't even trust each other?" Jin lowered his eyes. Yoongi sighed. "Maybe trust isn't a thing you feel. Maybe it's a thing you rebuild. Every day. Like a habit." Meanwhile, Jimin was alone in one of the spare rooms, staring at a blinking cursor on his laptop screen. He had been asked by Vogue Korea to write a personal essay about the aftermath. Something intimate, Human. He had written 5 words. Then, deleted them all. He couldn't write about forgiveness when he hadn't forgiven himself. A soft knock came at the door. He didn't answer, but it opened anyway. Taehyung stepped in, hands in his pockets. I heard you haven't eaten. I'm not hungry. You haven't been hungry in days. Jimin didn't turn. Taehyung walked over and sat down beside him. I'm not mad at you, he said. I am, Jimin replied, still facing the screen. At myself. You were lonely. You were scared. You made a mistake. I betrayed everything we built. You made a human choice, Taehyung said. Stop acting like you're a god. Jimin turned, finally meeting his eyes. Do you think the fans will ever see me the same way? No, Taehyung said honestly. But maybe that's a good thing. Jimin blinked. Why? Because now, Taehyung said, they'll see you. Back in the common room, Namjoon stood before the others, suddenly certain. We've said everything, he said. But now it's time to do something. Like what? Yoongi asked. Like release an album, Namjoon said. Not a safe one. Not one for chart numbers or brand deals. One that tells the truth. Raw? Jungkook asked, coming in. Unfiltered, Namjoon replied. About betrayal, healing, grief, brotherhood, all of it. And what if Hybe says no? Jin asked. Namjoon stared at him. Then we go independent. The word hit like thunder. No more layers. No more PR puppeteers. Just us. Yoongi nodded slowly. Jimin whispered. You're serious? Namjoon nodded. If we don't reclaim our voice now, we'll lose it forever. The others looked at one another, 7 men standing at the edge of the next chapter. Scared. Exposed. But no longer silent. And as the moon rose above Jeju Island that night, BTS made a decision. They would rise again. But this time, not as idols shaped by the industry. As artists forged by fire. As brothers bonded by truth. And the storm they would unleash next would be their masterpiece. It began not with a song, but with silence. 40 days passed. 40 days with no stage lights. No new content. No rehearsals. No schedules. No sudden drops or teaser trailers. The world waited. Desperate, curious, afraid. Speculation bloomed like wildfire. Had BTS disbanded? Was this the end? Then at exactly midnight KST on the 41st day, every major music platform simultaneously received a single, unannounced upload. Title: The Letter. Artist: BTS. Tracklist: 1 song. Length: 11 minutes and 11 seconds. Genre: unknown. Label N.A. There was no cover art, just a black square. But when fans pressed play, everything changed. It wasn't just music. It was a confession stitched in melody and blood. Namjoon opened the song with spoken word. No beat, just breath. His voice shook but didn't falter. This is not an apology. This is not a defense. This is the sound of walls collapsing. Then came Yoongi's verse. Stripped down, just piano and silence between syllables. I held a gun made of rhythm to my own head, because it was easier than holding a hand out. Jimin's voice followed. Not high, not soft, real. I kissed shame behind a locked door, and when it kissed back, I told myself I was lonely. That's how I survived myself. Jin's line came with a whisper, barely more than a breath. If you ever loved our smiles, know they were borrowed from each other. I forgot how to cry without stage lights. Then Hoseok, calm and haunting. Hope was my name, but not always my feeling. I danced so no one would see I was drowning. Taehyung's voice cracked on the first note. Love left when I thought it arrived, and I stayed when I wanted to run. Because someone whispered, I see you. And finally, Jungkook, the youngest, the anchor. No vocal run, no production tricks. Just this. I wanted to leave, and I didn't. So here I am, still choosing you. The final minute of the song had no lyrics. Just ambient echoes, waves, wind, the faint thrum of a heartbeat, then silence. And then one last voice. Namjoon, this was never about being perfect. This was about being us. If you're still listening, welcome to the beginning. Within 30 minutes, the song shattered every record it touched. Streaming platforms collapsed under demand. The servers hosting BTS's official site temporarily went down. Weverse saw over 5 million simultaneous logins. The world, once again, stood still this time, not in scandal, but reverence. And for the first time in years, the headlines changed. BTS returns with truth. The industry will never be the same. The letter breaks the internet and every rule of K-pop storytelling. More than a comeback, BTS redefines art, healing, and humanity. 3 days later, BTS held an open queue, a live stream not with press, but with fans. No media allowed, no translators, just 7 seats, 7 microphones, and the largest fandom in the world watching in silent awe. Namyeon began. We didn't want to come back as the version of us that almost broke. We wanted to return as the version that survived. Yoongi added. We gave the system everything, and in return, it tried to take us. Our pain isn't a footnote in our legacy. It is the legacy. Taehyung was quiet for a long time before saying, I thought being an idol meant being perfect. Now I know it means being honest. Jimin nodded. You didn't just accept us. You forgave us. Jin looked at the camera directly. Thank you for letting us be human. Hoseok smiled. We're not going anywhere. But the version of BTS you knew before? He's gone. And then Jungkook spoke. His voice was clear, calm, no mask. BTS is not a product, not a brand. We're not the past. We're not the scandal. We're not the rumors. We are not your fantasy. We're 7 people who love each other deeply, who hurt, who break, who choose each other again and again. He paused, letting his words land. And we choose you. Every time. That night, HYBE made a shocking announcement. BTS had restructured their contracts. They would remain under the label for distribution, but all creative direction, content, and public appearances would now be managed by an independent entity founded by the 7 members themselves. A new label, a new era, a new beginning. Name, still with us. Its mission, art without shame, truth without curation, music without fear. Within a month, the letter was nominated for 3 International Music Awards. Within 2, they announced a documentary, not about fame, but healing. And within 6, BTS sold out a 5-day world tour, without releasing a single teaser. Because they didn't need hype anymore. They had honesty, brotherhood, and a love that had been forged in fire and survived. On the first night of the new tour, as the lights dimmed in a sold-out stadium, a single spotlight appeared. Jungkook walked out first. No mic, no music, just a folded piece of paper in his hand. He opened it and began to read. The first letter, the one they'd all forgotten, the one that started it all. And around the world, millions cried not because it was sad, but because BTS had returned not as perfection, but as something better, real, unbreakable. Home, the end, and the beginning.